Russia promised a powerful summer offensive, but what it got was a prolonged, ineffective effort. The expected push to break Ukraine's lines from Kharkiv to Kherson fell apart, leading to vehicles caught in trees, troops stuck in fields, and weeks of inaction. If you only glanced at daily map updates, you might think progress was being made. However, a closer look reveals that the purported gains amounted to mere fields, tree lines, and industrial ruins, which cannot be held without further losses. The true story isn't about the distance gained, it's about the cost, in terms of time and lives, shells and drones, and propaganda versus morale. This exchange rate is deteriorating for Moscow as winter approaches. The summer strategy was straightforward: attack everywhere to break through somewhere. Russian commanders assembled troops and equipment along multiple fronts, then created corridors for glide bombs and artillery to force open gaps. On paper, it resembles classic military tactics: apply pressure, find weak points, and push units through. In reality, it faced modern defenses, flexible barriers, inexpensive surveillance technology, unmanned munitions targeting movement, and artillery that responds faster than any map can be adjusted. Before any T-90 tank could crest a hill, the offensive encountered a more complex problem: drone surveillance. Staging areas just miles from the front became easy targets. Convoys formed at dawn turned into target lists by lunchtime. Even heavily armored vehicles found out that being survivable doesn't mean being invincible when $500 drones are capable of delivering explosives into vulnerable spots. As a result, the initial push of "go fast, punch through" transformed into "go small, dig in," as anything larger than a squad attracted enemy fire from above. Russia attempted to solve this challenge by attacking from a distance. Glide bombs allowed pilots to stay away from Ukraine's air defenses while targeting trenches and supply points. This tactic caused damage, especially to logistical centers and towns along the front. However, it also revealed a flaw: you can destroy a block, but not the underlying strategy. Units spread out, command posts dug in deeper, and counter-battery units learned to move quickly between shots. The offensive's artillery advantage could create openings, but could not hold them, since securing territory now requires surviving subsequent drone strikes and counterattacks. When you look closely, every front line resembles a tide, with a tree lean here and a slag heap there. But this conflict isn't measured like a marathon. It's more like a balance sheet, evaluating what you must sacrifice to claim ground. The key components: trained soldiers, junior leaders, safe mobility, electronic warfare teams, and dependable logistics, are what Russia continually needs to expend to achieve marginal gains. When experts refer to grinding gains, they're highlighting a costly purchase that cannot be repeated. Ukraine doesn't need to defend every inch. It needs to secure the key points. Urban strongholds connected by rail and road act as a solid framework. While bombardments can affect the surface, it takes coordinated forces to break that framework. This is where Russia's summer plan fell short. Coordinating forces means synchronized defense against drones, precise artillery, and scattered anti-tank units. Russia could bring together firepower, but struggled to consolidate protected units in modern observation environments. Old offensives falter due to lengthy supply routes. New ones fail in the final mile, since those distances are constantly monitored. Each supply pallet must evade detection twice: first from artillery guided by drones, then from strikes targeting supply lines. This is why the tempo kept breaking down. Units reached the outskirts of a village, paid the price to enter, then realized resupply had become more complicated since the previous day. The map showed areas changing color, but the reality was a different story. Russia can enlist new recruits, but it cannot replicate experience. Relying on wounded soldiers and short-term volunteers fills uniforms, but does not replace skill. Junior leaders who can navigate terrain, time movements, and counter drone swarms develop their abilities over months of practice, under stress, with their unit. The summer took a toll on too many of those leaders. Each time a company managed to gather enough personnel for an advance, drones and artillery often depleted their sergeants and corporals. You can fill trenches with people, you can't speed up training for sergeants in a combat zone. By early 2025, a platoon could deliver more precision than a typical Cold War battalion. That's not an exaggeration. It's a reflection of how drone swarms operate. A few teams, each equipped with drones and tablets, can control 2 to 3 kilometers of front and prevent movement unless vehicles are hidden or masked. The summer demonstrated the defensive effectiveness of this shift. You don't need physical barriers when your assets are inexpensive, airborne, and pervasive. Now every breakthrough package must account for numerous small confrontations with unseen pilots. Electronic warfare has become critical on the front lines. During the offensive, each push relied on securing clear channels where Russian drones could guide attacks, while Ukrainian drones could not. However, such advantages rarely lasted. Defenders quickly analyzed frequencies and power, muddying the skies and disrupting the offensive's coherence. In this new landscape, the side that rapidly adapts its electronic warfare faster than the opposing side adapts its drones gains hours of advantage. Moscow captured some of those hours, but couldn't sustain them to translate local advantages into broader momentum. Different organizations provide varying casualty counts, with wide discrepancies. Yet, across reliable analyses, one trend is clear. Russia's advances resulted in minimal territorial gain at a significant human cost compared to Ukrainian losses during the same time frame. Even at the lowest estimates, the ratio is unfavorable for Moscow. At the highest, it is unsustainable. It's important to acknowledge the uncertainty, but it's equally critical to recognize the consistent theme across different data sets. The offensive exchanged lives for territory and still fell short. Russia can manufacture components and assemble equipment from repair plants. However, it struggles to rebuild modern, protected mobility at the rate that drones and artillery are destroying it. A successful small unit ambush can wipe out months of logistical work in a single strike involving just 5 vehicles. The ability to produce equipment and improve survivability is crucial. The summer made it clear that without reliable active protection and layered electronic warfare at the company level, armored units become easy targets instead of effective tools. When considering every orchard and slag heap, it's true that the line shifted in some areas. However, if you examine progress on a seasonal basis, a troubling pattern emerges. A third major offensive yielded less meaningful change than the first two, at a higher cost. This isn't just anecdotal, it reflects a trend. The trend shows that the return on investment for the offensive is declining, not improving. The most significant thing Ukraine gained this summer wasn't land. It was time to learn and adapt. Each week the front remained intact was another week to fine-tune air defenses, implement new strike options, secure supply points, and increase drone autonomy. In a contest of adaptation, the side that forces the opponent to keep repeating old attacks loses before any celebration occurs. Moscow's strategies largely kept it stuck in outdated tactics under increasingly better surveillance. You can count shells, but you can't measure morale. However, you can sense it through unit communication and observe it in troop behavior, like how long soldiers stay in vulnerable positions, how quickly they re-engage after leave, and how many junior commanders volunteer again after an unsuccessful push. The summer cycle, attack, halt, suffer losses, repeat, creates a demoralizing rhythm for attackers and a calming one for defenders. Every minimal advantage Russia gained this summer negatively impacted its economy. Fuel strains from targeted strikes, rising insurance costs, increased prices for sanctioned parts, and the ongoing need to replace supplies in a warfare style that prioritizes artillery. This long-term burden doesn't appear on a map. It manifests in budget lines showing fewer choices each quarter. Winter won't pause the war, it will change the dynamics. Snow reveals movement. Cold weather punishes poorly maintained engines. Battery performance of drones may decrease. The side with efficient logistics and flexible electronic warfare will have the upper hand. The side that requires large formations to achieve results will find them easier to track and destroy. Anticipate the same warfare strategies in more challenging conditions. Small teams probing, drones making decisions, and artillery delivering the final blows. The summer offensive led Moscow to depend on glide bombs and long-range munitions. Winter will intensify the battle surrounding these technologies, improve targeting for interceptors, better management of emissions, and innovative methods to lure strike aircraft into danger zones. You won't always see this development on a daily map, but you will feel it in the rhythm of bombardments and the durability of supply points. If the attacking tempo lessens, it will likely reflect changes in the underlying struggle. Logistical centers, rail junctions, and refineries far from the combat line aren't mere trophies, they're tools of war. Ukraine's strategy has been to force these tools to bear more weight until they crack. When the rear areas endure more suffering, the forward positions become stronger. This is why even small tactical gains can struggle to grow. The vital supply routes behind them are being squeezed. Expect this to continue, especially in winter when it takes longer to repair damage and fuel demands increase. Moscow can still create contracts and fulfill them. However, it cannot manufacture intact, well-rested units with experienced non-commissioned officers. As the war extends, this shortfall becomes a serious crisis. Ukraine faces its own staffing challenges, but the summer underscored a crucial truth. Defenders can rotate effectively while attackers must continuously reinforce the front lines. The side that has to keep creating assault groups pays a heavier morale price over time. The summer offensive served as a test of whether brute force could overcome a modern defensive setup enriched with drones using only artillery and armored units. The result was clear. Doing so is not feasible at an acceptable cost. This doesn't mean armored vehicles are finished. It means that armored units without effective electronic warfare, counter-drone systems, and rapid-fire capabilities become liabilities for their side. In this context, precision defeats sheer numbers, and agility surpasses mere showmanship. Allies observed the summer for key indicators. Does supporting Ukraine yield results? Does Russian pressure alter the battlefield? Is perseverance worthwhile? The data collected over months of footage and open-source intelligence shows that support led to improved air defenses, more effective interdiction, and fewer vulnerabilities. The political takeaway is clear. To decrease missile strikes on cities and reduce breakthroughs on the map, continue providing assistance. Strip away the rhetoric, and one principle emerges. The side that reduces uncertainty faster than the enemy can rebuild its forces will win. This summer, Russia confirmed one aspect. It can still concentrate fire. However, it failed to establish the most important certainty, transforming that fire into lasting territorial advantage. In contrast, Ukraine, through difficult adjustments, maintained the opposite dynamic, turning lessons learned into survival and survival into time. Do not expect a snow-covered blitz to conclude the war. Anticipate gradual pressures, disrupted rail yards, fuel supply trickling instead of flowing, airfields operating less effectively, and battalion units finding that every safe path is only secure for a short time. Such warfare doesn't generate daily headlines. It leads to slower exhaustion for the side that must attack to claim victory. To understand if winter favors Moscow or Kiev, don't focus on daily headlines. Observe aircraft sortie rates, the rate of glide bomb usage, the frequency of interdictions beyond the front, and the quality of rotations in frontline brigades. These indicators will give insight before any major territorial changes. When they shift, the battlefield will follow. The significant summer offensive aimed to demonstrate that mass could overcome modern defenses fortified by drones. Instead, it revealed that modern defenses can shatter mass that isn't equally advanced. Unless Russia makes fundamental changes to how it protects and coordinates its assault units, 2026 will likely be less of a march and more another round of costly, incremental gains. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next in-depth look at winter tactics and the long-range duel shaping the months ahead. Leave a comment with the one indicator you think will matter most, whether it's sortie rates, fuel stress, or drone attrition. Also, let us know which front you want us to cover next.